National Space Day quiz. When is National Space Day celebrated in India? August 23rd. Who declared August 23rd as National Space Day in India? Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In which year was August 23rd declared National Space Day? 2023. Why is August 23rd celebrated as National Space Day in India? To commemorate the successful landing of Chandrayaan 3 on the moon. When did Chandrayaan 3 successfully land on the moon? August 23rd, 2023. What is the name of Chandrayaan 3's landing site? Shiv Shakti Point. What was the name of the Chandrayaan 3 lander? Vikram. What was the name of the Chandrayaan 3 rover? Pragyan. Near which region of the moon did Chandrayaan 3 land? The lunar South Polar region. Which launch vehicle launched Chandrayaan 3? LVM-3M4. When was Chandrayaan 3 launched? July 14, 2023. Which country became the fourth country to achieve a soft landing on the moon? India. Which country became the first to successfully land near the moon's south polar region? India. What was the theme of India's National Space Day 2025? Aryabhatta to Gaganyaan. What was the theme of India's National Space Day 2026? India's space journey towards Viksit Bharat 2047. What does ISRO stand for? Indian Space Research Organization. When was ISRO established? August 15th, 1969. Who is the chairman of ISRO in 2026? Dr. V. Narayanan. Where is ISRO headquartered? Bengaluru. Who is known as the father of the Indian space program? Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. What was India's first satellite? Aryabhatta. When was Aryabhatta launched? 1975. India's first rocket launch took place in from which place? Tumba, Kerala. When did India's first rocket launch take place? November 21. Where are ISRO's major launch vehicles developed? Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, Thiruvananthapuram. Which launch vehicle is known as the workhorse of ISRO? PSLV. What does PSLV stand for? Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. What does SLV-3 stand for? Satellite Launch Vehicle 3. What was India's first experimental communication satellite? Apple. What does Apple stand for? Ariane Passenger Payload Experiment. What was India's first lunar mission? Chandrayaan 1. Which Indian mission confirmed the presence of water molecules on the moon? Chandrayaan 1. When was Chandrayaan 1 launched? 2008. Which Indian mission confirmed the presence of water molecules on the moon? Chandrayaan 1. What was India's first Mars mission? Mangalyaan. What is Mangalyaan also known as? Mars Orbiter Mission. When was Mangalyaan launched? 2013. Which Asian country became the first to reach Mars orbit on its first attempts? India. What is India's human spaceflight program called? Gaganyaan. What is the main objective of the Gaganyaan mission? To send Indian astronauts into space. What are Indian astronauts selected for the Gaganyaan program called? Gaganyadris. Who was the first Indian to travel into space? Rakesh Sharma. When did Rakesh Sharma travel into space? 1984. Who was the first human to travel into space? Yuri Gagarin. When did Yuri Gagarin become the first human in space? 1961. Who was the first female space tourist? Anousheh Ansari. Who was the Indian origin astronaut famous for multiple long duration space missions? Sunita Williams. Who was the first Indian origin woman to travel into space? Kalpana Chawla. Who was the first woman of Indian origin to travel into space? Kalpana Chawla. Who was the first woman in space? Valentina Tereshkova. What does Aditya L1 primarily study? The Sun. Which planet will Chandrayaan 1 study? Venus. Which ISRO mission is dedicated to studying the Sun? Aditya L1. Which planet will Chandrayaan 1 study? Venus. Which Indian mission is planned to study Venus? Chandrayaan 1. What is India's planned lunar sample return mission called? Chandrayaan 4. Where is Aditya L1 positioned? Near the Sun Earth L1 Lagrange point. What is India's regional satellite navigation system called? NAV-IC. What does NAV-IC stand for? Navigation with Indian constellation. Which Indian mission demonstrated space docking technology? SpaceX. What major technology was demonstrated by SpaceX? Autonomous docking and undocking in space. What is India's space telescope called? Astrosat. What is Vikram 1 designed to launch? Small satellites into low Earth orbit. Which Indian private company developed the Vikram 1 launch vehicle? Skyroot Aerospace. What does IN-SPACE stand for? Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. Which country became the fourth country to demonstrate space docking technology? India. When was the Axiom 4 mission launched? June 25th, 2025. Which Indian astronaut traveled to the International Space Station on the Axiom 4 mission? Shubhanshu Shukla. What does ISS stand for? International Space Station. What is the International Space Station commonly called? ISS. What does AstroSat study? Celestial objects in different wavelengths. Who was the ISRO 6 chairman when Chandrayaan 3 was launched? S. Somanath. Where is Satish Dhawan Space Center located? Sriharikota, Andhra Pradesh. Which space center is India's main orbital launch site? Satish Dhawan Space Center. Which aircraft was used for the Axiom 4 mission? SpaceX Crew Dragon. Approximately how long did Shubhanshu Shukla stay in space during the Axiom 4 mission? About 18 days. Which planet is closest to the Sun? Mercury. Which is the largest planet in the solar system? Jupiter. Which is the smallest planet in the solar system? Mercury. What force keeps planets in orbit around the Sun? Gravity. Which rocket is popularly nicknamed the Naughty Boy by the Indian space community? GSLV. What is Earth's natural satellite? The Moon. Which is the hottest planet in the solar system? Venus. Which planet is known for its prominent ring system? Saturn. Which planet is known as the red planet? Mars. Which planet is farthest from the Sun among the 8 planets? Neptune. What are space travelers from the United States commonly called? Astronauts. What is the region where astronauts experience very weak apparent gravity called? Microgravity. How long does sunlight take to reach Earth? About 8 minutes 20 seconds. What is the approximate diameter of the Moon? 3,474 kilometers. What is at the center of the solar system? The Sun. What is the name of the force responsible for keeping the Moon in orbit around the Earth? Earth's gravity. Which country launched India's first satellite, Aryabhata? Soviet Union. Which launch vehicle carried Chandrayaan 1? PSLV C-11. Which launch vehicle carried Mangalyaan? PSLV C-25. Which Indian mission was the first to orbit Mars? Mangalyaan. Which planet has the longest day in the solar system? Venus. Which planet rotates on its side relative to most other planets? Uranus. Which planet has the great red spot? Jupiter. What is the nearest star to the Earth? The Sun. What is the boundary commonly used to mark the beginning of space? Kármán line. What is a group of stars, gas, and dust held together by gravity called? Galaxy. What is the name of the galaxy closest to the Milky Way among the major nearby galaxies? Andromeda Galaxy. What is the galaxy containing our solar system called? Milky Way. Which planet has the shortest year? Mercury. How many planets are in the solar system? 8. What is the main purpose of India's space program? To use space technology for national development and the benefit of society. What is the main purpose of artificial satellites? Communication, navigation, Earth observation, weather monitoring, and scientific research. What is a satellite that orbits Earth at a very high altitude and appears fixed over one location called? Geostationary satellite. What is a spacecraft that carries instruments to study another planet called? Space probe. What is the study of objects and phenomena beyond Earth's atmosphere called? Astronomy. Which country achieved the first soft landing on the moon? Soviet Union. When was Sputnik 1 launched? 1957. What was the world's first artificial satellite? Sputnik 1. What are Russian space travelers commonly called? Cosmonauts. Who was the first human to walk on the moon? Neil Armstrong. Which mission carried Neil Armstrong to the moon? Apollo 11. Which rocket carried Apollo 11 to the moon? Saturn V. Which country was the first to send humans to the moon? United States. Who is the NASA astronaut of Malayali origin from Palakkad who recently traveled to the International Space Station? Dr. Anil Menon. Which spacecraft carried Dr. Anil Menon to the International Space Station? Soyuz MS-29. How long is Dr. Anil Menon's mission aboard the International Space Station? Approximately 8 months. Who is the ISRO Gaganyadri from Palakkad, Kerala? Air Commodore Prashant Balakrishnan Nair. Thanks for watching.